Hi empaths, welcome back to my healing space, back to another intuitive session, integrating the archetypes. So I'm going to use my angelic tuning fork to clear the energy of the space, the cards, our auras, invoking angels, guides, compassionate ancestors, any beings of the light who want to inform this reading for the most accurate, helpful, resonant, healing information that's priority for the viewer to hear at the time of watching this video. Beautiful. Going back to the archetype cards by Carolyn Meese to see which archetype would like to take the spotlight. This may be in the shadow, maybe in our shadow, right? Want some integration. Something that would be useful for us to work with this week. Or to keep an eye out for, right? Which archetype is priority to look at this time? Mystic. The mystic. The light attribute revels in intimate union with the divine. And the shadow attribute, delusional rapport with the divine. And that kind of came up as medicine last week when we looked at the vampire archetype, right? What's our connection to our source, to higher power, right? In the flow of energy, instead of siphoning life force from others, there's an unlimited supply. So, and finding connection in that, as well as connection to self. So, the inner mystic, chances are if you're watching this channel, you're somewhat in tune with that aspect of yourself, right? You're attuned to the mystical aspects, the oneness, maybe on a somewhat of a mystical path yourself. And then what are the blind spots that might be creating, right? If that's what you're most tuned into, is it creating a blind spot anywhere else? Right? Are your physical needs getting met? Right? Sometimes what happens is we feel this euphoric sense of attuning to higher power. That's a beautiful experience. But then maybe our physical needs on this earth plane aren't met, right? Sometimes it creates a bit of an imbalance. Let's look at some oracle cards to see how we can integrate the mystic. What are we looking at here? Why is the mystic priority? Okay, so the first card that's coming up is find the blessings in your current situation. And maybe this is part of this mystic aspect of yourself, right? Maybe that's part of the imbalance in that, you know, positive thinking gets you out of reality, right? Because sometimes that happens in the spiritual community, right? Where we use this commitment to positive thinking and we get into this delusional state. Delusional, right? The word delusional even appears on the card in the shadow attribute, delusional rapport with the divine. So if we have this idea that if we just keep thinking positively, all things will work out, sometimes positive thinking can be a very great skill, right? Seeing the silver lining. And then sometimes it can be delusional, right? If there's something we need to do, you know, that happens in the spiritual community sometimes, right? We have the sense that because I'm spiritual, I'm special. And so I don't have to take precautions that normal people would have to take, right? Normal people or everyday people that aren't connected with the divine. So, you know, I can just leave my purse sit here out here in the hall while I go into the yoga studio, right? It's like sometimes we have these delusional thoughts that we're somehow extra protected because we're doing spiritual work or we're in the spiritual community. And it's not really the case, you know? We're still having a human experience here. So we don't want to get out of touch with reality in that way. But maybe there is this sense that, you know, we're being protected in certain ways. Or we're calling on protection, protective forces like angels, guides, ancestors. We're asking for protection. Maybe we just came into a blessing, but there's an imbalance. We're not able to hold on to, like maybe finances flow in easily, but also out, right? Finances and career is coming up. So maybe we're really working on empowering ourselves around finances. If we're not fully grounded in the material world, it's hard for us to anchor down manifestations. So that's where this can disempower us, right? This connection, you know? Sometimes there's this spiritual bypassing that happens, right? That if I just connect in the upper chakras, everything else will be taken care of and put in order. And that's not really how it works, is it? So maybe what's being called for here to empower us is to ground down, to connect with nature. You're rejuvenated and inspired by spending time outdoors. Maybe there's something to be learned from nature, connecting with trees, right? The leaves grow up and out towards the heavens, but they're also really solidly rooted in the ground, right? Maybe there's something to learn there. And then very solidly aligned in the trunk, right? Maybe working with trees for alignment. Grounding, being out in nature helps ground us, relax an overstimulated system that empaths tend to have, sensitives, intuitives. Learning by observing, being near the elements, being near the ocean can help us allow energy, emotions to flow. Energy, emotions, it can bring some cleansing. So maybe we have this sense of connection to divine up here, right? But we also can be grounded in it by going out in nature, which helps us ground into our bodies and anchor some of this down so that we can have an impact in the material world. That's important, right? And then speaker's coming up. Speaker. So maybe part of your message is learning this balance. Maybe you're on a mystical quest and you're sharing that wisdom with others. Your experiences are teaching you something about life, about the world, or maybe you have this incredible connection to something in the natural world, like animals, natural processes. Maybe you see a metaphor for life or a metaphor for this connection to divine when you're out in nature, and you have this maybe really poetic way of expressing to inspire other people to feel connected too, right? And maybe you're part of your audience are people that have codependent tendencies, right? Part of codependency is sometimes it can be getting enmeshed with somebody, getting addicted to a person, or having a tendency to partner with addicts of some kind. But sometimes a codependent will isolate, right? Because it's so, feeling connected to somebody else can be so overwhelming because of this entanglement, because there's not this solid sense of self. And then we tend to make one person our entire world, and that's where the addiction comes in for us. So instead of doing so, we choose isolation, which is the other end of the spectrum. Maybe part of the message is, it doesn't have to be all or nothing here. Teaching other people how to relate and bond properly by something you observe in nature. Maybe it's the way animals bond with each other. Maybe it's studying that, or just looking at studies about how animals bond, or connecting people with a service animal that helps them feel connected, right? That helps them see how connected they really are in those times where they feel really isolated. Or helps them decompress, helps them unburden. Or trains them, sometimes service dogs are in place to teach humans how to be happy, teach them about happiness. When a dog is excited, when you come home and it wags its tail, it creates this chemical response in us too, to create some happiness. So it might be something about that. There might also be a connection to the elementals, the fairy realm, right? Maybe you sense you're part fairy. So the human experience hasn't always made a lot of sense to you, right? That's coming up later, I'll show you. But practice is also coming up. So maybe this is about practicing being grounded, because she's looking down. It requires some practice here, right? It requires some practice to and the travel card's coming up. So I'm getting a sense that maybe floating up and out is more exciting, blissful, euphoric, and easier, right? Maybe that's just more natural for you. The learning curve is coming down and embodying, right? That groundedness. That's true of the empathic tendency, the empathic nature, right? Is I float up and out, and that's how things come in. That's how we receive empathic transmissions. We float up and out of our system. So maybe it is about practicing grounding, right? There's a time and place for astral travel and floating up and out and connecting to divine, but we also want to ground down, right? That's how we will protect ourselves as the mystics of the world, right? Learning to ground down when appropriate, embodying. And then we have playfulness coming in. And this is where the fairy nature can come in, right? Fairies, people that have elemental energy. I actually saw a lifetime as a fairy during past life regression work. I didn't even know that was a possibility. But I saw a lifetime as a fairy. It was actually the first lifetime I saw doing past life work. And it was this idea that, and Dr. Stephen Farmer talks about how fairies are the ancestors of the land. So you might have this connection to nature, connection to animals, connection to plants, even more so than the human world, right? Even more so than other humans. You might just understand animals more. There's truth in that experience that you feel really connected to. And that might also be part of this mystical nature, right? As a fairy floats above, floats around and observes, does a lot of observing, watching over as a flower blooms, right? And that's something that happened during that lifetime. I noticed I did a lot of watching flowers bloom. I guess I was guarding nature, right? I was looking over nature. I was looking into the eyes of an owl and learning telepathically from the owl. That was part of our schooling in this world. It was very interesting to observe. And then there was also a fairy dance, a fairy ball. And that was like a daily thing. So are you called to dance and sing every day? That might be your inner fairy, right? This mystical part of you that wants to feel like you're in touch with it on a daily basis. So making time for it, right? And setting aside time, making it part of your practice, right? Will prevent you from floating up and out uncontrollably, right? Make time to connect. Make this part of your practice. Set aside time every day so it doesn't feel neglected. But then we also need some grounding, right? In the material world. We also need to be connected here. We're here to have an earthly experience, after all, a human experience. So can we create more balance in the other direction? Can really help us cut through delusion, right? Like, in what ways are we deluding ourselves? Let's go to the Gilded Tarot by Ciro Marchetti. See if there's any more information that wants to come through about this mystic quest of a lifetime that we've chosen. This mystical nature we have connected to higher power, the playfulness of a fairy that's also connected to nature. Fairies are known to be a little mischievous too, maybe a little fiery. And because their ancestors of the land might have some righteous anger that they're managing, right? So learning to put that in its proper place. Like, are you really triggered by people that, when you sense there's an injustice, when someone pollutes, for example, or when an animal is mistreated, right? Is there this flare of anger that comes in? That can be associated with that fairy connection. Okay, so the first card that comes out is the Hermit, right? So maybe there is this sense of isolation, this journey, seeking wisdom, seeking virtue, right? This sense of valuing nature, valuing animals, valuing a connection to divine, and we're on this mystic quest inward as a hermit, right? Maybe that's the leg of the journey we're on. Going inside. Sensing that connection with the divine through solitude. Is there an imbalance in that? Does it stem from this righteous anger? Queen of Wands, this passion, this fiery queen, passionate, righteous anger, right? Can we transform the righteous anger into joy, playfulness? Playfulness, right? The fire might also be cutting through delusion. Maybe there's something that's hidden right now, the moon. Maybe we're working with something, right? As we're on this quest, inward quest, this journey, this mystical quest, and maybe, you know, we have this mysterious anger that we keep dealing with, keeps popping up. Why am I angry? Why am I triggered into anger here? Or perhaps our connection to our passion, our creativity, our creative fire, helps us illuminate, right? Maybe we're on this isolated quest in solitude, seeking illumination, seeking enlightenment. There's something inside of us we're seeking, right? That's the mystic. And we come in contact with this Queen of Wands internally. Maybe the Queen of Wands is our go-to. Maybe she expresses in anger. Maybe when we sense that someone is being secretive or mysterious, it triggers us. Maybe this is part of the delusion, right? The moon card. The moon card is about what's in the dark here, operating in the dark. we're searching for illumination, searching for light as the Hermit. And the Queen of Wands is also illuminating. There's something hidden. Maybe we're searching for the meaning of a certain meaning of current circumstances, searching for meaning of life, our purpose, and that, and so because we're not quite clear, and maybe it has to do with career, our purpose, maybe, finding the perfect career that makes us feel like we're on purpose. And maybe that's something that's hidden right now. And we're going inside to try to feel this out. Like, why am I here? And until we figure it out, maybe we're deluding ourselves. Maybe they're, in order to cope, right? We're telling us certain things. We're telling ourselves certain things to try to get through, just to make it through, maybe even false hope in certain ways. Right? Is this part of the codependency? Seeking things outside of ourselves, right? When what's really being called for is an inner quest here, searching for meaning, enlightenment. Well, death is coming up. Death is the ending, right? Using the end of something, end of this cycle, right? And it, followed by the world. So a real ending of a cycle, an end of a season. We're really maybe going through an ending here. And then the Fool, a new beginning. First step in a new journey, right? The Tarot is the Fool's journey. The first step, now with the wisdom we've gleaned from this last leg of the journey, we've integrated. And that calls for celebration, right? So maybe there's an aspect of self that we're afraid to let go of. That's maybe part of the codependency as well, right? Maybe there's an aspect of ourselves that it's hard to say goodbye to. Or there's something we don't want to look at about ourselves. Anytime it gets triggered, we flare up in anger. So we'd rather, maybe we're not owning our anger, or we're not owning our righteous anger. So we act out, we lash out like a Scorpio would, right? Death is related to Scorpio. We're ending this cycle. And it's interesting, the Three of Cups, celebration, playfulness, right? Are we able to have more fun and joy while being grounded here on the earthly plane? Right? Because maybe we're floating up and out to avoid being here, but we can have fun here too. So can we get in touch with that? What can we do here that's fun? Can we make that part of our spiritual practice? Malachite. Malachite cleanses, protects, heals the heart and throat chakras. Malachite is one of my go-to stones that I recommend for empaths, particularly emotional empaths, right? Malachite is going to help us release emotional trauma, right? Release emotional residue, digest and process our emotions. And for me personally, it helps me get into my body, right? So, and being embodied is what makes us more connected, right? Or protected, right? When we're in our body, we're less susceptible to these empathic transmissions. So malachite can help us work through that, right? And we got a queen. This is the playing decks card, or the playing cards deck by Healing Crystals. So we're assigned the queen here, and the queen came up as the Queen of Wands. So it might also be that healthy dose of anger can help us burn up some of the emotions, some of the watery emotions, right? Look at all that water there. So that might be part of this too, ending this cycle. Working through these heavy, dense emotions with malachite. It's a great companion for empaths. Let's see what essential oil wants to lend its aroma. Right? Are you escaping through your spirituality? That can be referred to as premature ascension or spiritual bypassing. So we're just looking to embody here to be more protected. Working with the inner mystic this week, integrating that, right? Putting the mystic in its proper place, putting it in check, right? We don't want to use it to escape. We don't want to get addicted to the experience of attuning to a higher power and not being grounded here in the material world. We want a balance of that experience. What essential oil? Spikenard. Spikenard is the oil of faith. Faith is the key word here. The trigger statement, why does this always happen to me? The true statement, I am at peace. Know that everything will work out as it needs to, and hold a space of gratitude as you watch the miracles unfold. So that really connects to find the blessings in the current situation, right? Perhaps inhaling spikenard can help get into a sense of inner peace, right? Particularly if there's overwhelming emotions or overstimulation, which tends to happen for empaths. Spikenard is the oil of gratitude, right? So maybe even a gratitude practice, and maybe calling out things that you're grateful for and celebrating. Having a gratitude practice, part of your spiritual practice, and maybe doing it while connected, while outside in nature. Right? And maybe that will bring in some travel. Maybe you'll be traveling to nature. Appreciation for life. Gratitude for life. You know, being grateful for life heals our relationship to our parents, right? And our ancestors. Allows life force to flow through us. Connects us to Mother Earth, right? If there's a disruption there. Sometimes we're so in tune with the mystical because there's a disrupted bond. And we feel disconnected from Mother Earth. So can we make like a tree and still remain connected here, but use our minds, use our breath to ground down? It'll help us stay at peace, right? That core of inner peace can help us stay aligned. Let's go to the Crazy Sexy Love Notes cards by Chris Carr. All of these cards are available in my Amazon store, linked in the description of this video. If you're interested, even the tuning fork. So if you're interested in picking up any of these, go to the link there. And I think it's one of the idea lists about intuitive readings, or something about intuitive readings in the title of the idea list. So you'll recognize it when you see it. You can just check whatever is available there. One last card from the Crazy Sexy Love Notes card to wrap it all up. Working with the mystic this week, right? Do we need to integrate the mystic a little bit more? Acknowledge the inner mystic more so it's less compulsive. Accept that aspect of ourselves, or put it more in balance, more in check by grounding down, by connecting to nature, connecting to Mother Earth. A sense of play and celebration for life, gratitude for life. I'm going to own this life while I'm here. You know, I'm going to be the star player in my life. And, you know, maybe there is this sense of homesickness, right? For a higher plane, other planet, maybe we identify star seed, something like that. What do we need to do to feel purpose here and being here? Because there's a reason we came. Maybe to bring that peace. Breathe deeply. Exactly, right? Using our breath. Breath moves our energy and our vitality. Breathe deeply. Notice she's connected to flowers. She's out in nature. Breathe big. Let it all in. Let it all in. Expand your fabulous belly. Deep diaphragmatic breaths. Who cares if your jeans feel too tight? Here's an idea. Buy a roomier pair. Deep, full breaths invigorate you. They release sadness and allow ecstasy to flood in. Releasing sadness. Pause. Inhale a long, slow, big, delicious breath. Exhale. Remember, whenever the going gets tough, take a deep breath and trust that you are capable of greatness. Breathe deeply. Fresh air out in nature, right? Yep, using that breath. Diaphragmatic breath, belly breaths helps reset the nervous system, right? Back to relaxation. If you're in fight or flight mode, prolonged sense of fight or flight because of that heightened sensitivity, deep belly breaths can really help reset that vagus nerve, resetting the central nervous system back to relaxation, state of inner peace. All right, I hope this reading was helpful. Let's work with the mystic this week. And calling in synchronicities and experiences there, right? To really just further integrate into wholeness. So if you'd like to work one-on-one, connect on other social media platforms, that'll all be in the description of this video. Wishing you much inner peace and much love. I'll see you in the next reading. Bye, empath.